In 2020 and 2021, Congress allocated COVID relief packages totaling $4 trillion. It's the largest economic stimulus in U.S. history. Dealing with the unprecedented health and economic crisis of the pandemic required coordination among multiple federal agencies, as well as working with state, local, and tribal governments. The National Academy of Public Administration has established a new center to strengthen collaboration and cooperation among leaders at all levels of government. Terry Gerton is president and CEO of the National Academy of Public Administration. Terry, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Mimi. Great to be here.
So it's called the Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships. Why did you set it up? What will it do?
Well, we've been thinking about the center for a while, but NAPA's been involved in intergovernmental partnerships for a long time. It's how our government works. And so if you're going to do public administration, you need to deal with all the levels of government. But a couple of years ago, when we announced our grand challenges in public administration, we really realized that we were not going to make progress on all of those if we only stuck at the federal level. We needed to bring our partners in at the state and local levels because things like water systems and meaningful work are not resolved only at the federal level. You really need your local and state governments to work well. And then, of course, COVID happened, and we all saw firsthand how important it was that states and counties and communities were integrated in their approach in order to be able to meet the needs of their citizens. So we said, it's urgent, the time is now. We really think that this is a place where the Academy can make a difference.
So one of the goals of the center is to improve coordination.
Right.
Something as big as COVID relief is huge. How do you even begin with that?
Well, we learned some lessons from the report we did a few months ago with the National Association of Counties on the Coronavirus Relief Fund. That was $150 billion that went directly to counties to help address the needs of their communities. And we learned some lessons from that. The first one was that you can't just have one agency who's responsible for this. We're dealing with integrated impacts in communities, and there's no one federal agency that owns all of those. So we needed a national response, not an agency response to it. The second important thing that we learned was federal agencies aren't really structured to manage these kinds of integrated programs. So as these kinds of things roll out in the future, and we saw it with the recovery program law that went into effect, you need a program office. So you have people dedicated to managing and designing and delivering the program. And the third piece that was really key was you needed to build guidance on the front end where the federal agencies took input from the communities that were going to be receiving this. That wasn't necessarily done in the first package under CARES, and what you had was a lot of confusion in the communities about what to do with this money.
I wanted to ask you about that, because were the parameters set clearly? Were they too restrictive? Did people know, how am I supposed to take this money and spend it? Can I use it for my deficit? Can I use it for, I don't have enough tax money coming in now. People are out of work. How do you know how to do that?
Right. Well, the key piece, and one of the things that the center is going to be very active on, is figuring out how to get people together on the front end to design these programs well. There was guidance. Treasury put together guidance, but the guidance wasn't particularly clear about how communities needed to spend the funds, needed to account for the funds, what they could do with the funds, how long they had to spend the funds. And you can appreciate in our government system, we're very concerned about accountability. And so folks were very nervous about spending funding in creative ways if they weren't sure that they had the permission on the front end.
Yeah, so because you can get into big trouble if you
get into big
end
trouble
up spending it on something that you weren't supposed to.
Right, and nobody wants to be there. Everybody wants to do the right thing, and so it's going to be really important. We saw it in the recovery program. We will see it when there's an infrastructure package. We will see it when there's a human services infrastructure package. The design up front is really critical so that you get the accountability, but you also provide the flexibility so that you can have the outcomes that you want. This is a massive amount of money, and we want to make sure that we do it right.
And as you said, accountability is going to be key.
Right.
So how do we put things in place now before more money goes out that the American public can be sure, okay, this money was used properly and effectively?
Right. Well, the great news is we have lots of new information systems. They don't all talk to each other just yet, right? But we need to make sure that we design the reporting structure from the front end to make it as seamless and as simple and as natural as possible. But to do that, you need the oversight community involved in the program design, right? The GAO needs to be there, the agency IGs need to be there, the state accountability folks need to be involved in the program design from the front, so everyone is comfortable with the reporting mechanisms, and you're actually reporting on the outcomes that you want to measure, not just on whether things went through the funding pipes in the right process.
Well, speaking of measuring outcomes, how will you know your center is successful?
Well, we're encouraged from the beginning with the partnerships that we've been building. There's a lot of interest in this. There's a lot of commitment to the fact that we need to be active in this space. So what we're going to be looking at is a couple of things. Our independent research, so looking at these kinds of programs and making sure that we can report back on promising practices, and then seeing those promising practices turned around into guidance for the next round is really important to upfront. And then the second big activity that the center will pursue is convenings. One of the things we know from our previous work is that there are large communities that have staff and are very comfortable dealing with federal grants. There are lots and lots of small communities that have never seen this amount of money and don't know what to do with it. So bringing groups of people together, especially regionally, with regional governments who are focused on the same kinds of issues, and sharing these best practices to facilitate community learning, so that we then again see the next time we have to do this, because we'll have to do it again, whether it's infrastructure or another crisis or something like that. We'll be back at that table again. We want to put the processes and practices in place now to make them work better the next time.
Great. Thank you so much, Terry, for coming in and sharing that with us.
Mimi, great to be here. Thank you.